years, the online coaching world sold us one playbook: niche down, build your brand, post consistently, create that signature framework, and success will follow. And so we did. We picked our colors and fonts. We crafted our clever method names, and we showed up every single day. And some of us still blending in. Not because we aren't working hard enough, but it's really because no one told us that all of those tactics only work when they are built on the right foundation, one most coaches never even address. After nearly a decade of studying the intersection of theology, neuroscience, and brand building, and working with over 20 Christian women entrepreneurs who were doing everything they were told to do and doing it right, but still felt invisible, I have discovered exactly what was missing. And in this video, I'm sharing the complete framework so you can go from invisible despite all of your effort to a category of one brand leader where dream clients seek you out and your income finally reflects the depth of what you actually carry. Let's get into it. Before I show you the framework, I want you to know that I was seriously there too. For nearly 3 years, I was showing up consistently. I actually was doing like a 75 hard content sprint. I posted nearly every single day. I followed all of the strategies and I wasn't getting anywhere. Brene Brown has this quote that says, authenticity is the daily practice of letting go of who we think we're supposed to be and embracing who we are. And this is actually what I was doing wrong. I was showing up as who I thought the market wanted me to be, the version of me that was palatable, and not actually who I was. I was definitely performing. So early 2025, something within me shifted. I started leaning into what I call brand authority instead of just brand visibility. I stopped chasing engagement. I started experimenting truly, creating from my artistry, from my embodied experience, from really the depth of what I actually carry, okay? And once I made this decision, I decided that I would go all in on depth platforms. So YouTube, Substack, and podcasts, okay? Not because they were trending, but because I seriously craved depth. And so I just started building what I now called a brand world, okay? And it's not just a brand identity. And here is the thing that I discovered. The moment that I stopped trying to stand out, I actually did. Not because I was louder or because I posted more, but because I was finally building from the right foundation. And that is what I'm about to teach you right now. So I want to introduce you to something that I call the Overflow Code. And I'm going to share phase 2 with you. And this is my signature 5-phase process for building a one-of-one purpose-led personal brand from the inside out. The Overflow Code has 5 phases. Phase 1 is the foundation, and this is establishing inner order and regulating your power. Phase 2 is the signature, becoming felt, remembered, and valued, and this is where we are today. Phase 3 is all about the boutique, so creating your bespoke offer suite. Phase 4 is the vortex, so turning your content into cultural influence. And phase 5 is the legacy, building for multiplied and long-term impact. So today we're going to dive deep on phase 2, the signature, because this is where you shift from really merely just showing up to actually being felt and remembered and valued. And this is where you uncover your sphere of influence and truly become crystal clear about who you're here to serve and the message that you're actually meant to carry. And this is where you stop blending in and become a category of one leader. And it is built on 4 essential elements: and I am going to walk you through them now. The first element is your identity. And I'm not talking about your brand identity. So I'm not talking about a logo, an aesthetic, or even your Canva templates. I'm actually talking about who you are at your core, because your sphere of influence flows through three levels: your identity, your capacity, and your power. And identity is the foundation. So here is the belief I find that most Christian women, coaches, and service providers often operate from this belief of, okay, well, if I just figure out the right positioning statement, then I'll stand out. So they end up, spending hours. So I used to do this, wordsmithing, the perfect bio, workshopping your elevator pitch, trying on, different I help statements like you're shopping for the right outfit, right? And it all feels forced, okay? Because you can't position what you don't actually know. And most Christian women entrepreneurs are building brands from a false identity. You will end up finding yourself building from the version of you that you think the market desires to see. What's popular? The version you think that a good Christian woman, right, should have. That's not humbled, something that's not too bold. The version you're performing as to prove that you're worthy of the price that you're actually charging. And here is what ends up happening. People can sense when you are performing. I talked about this in last week's in the previous video, because people can feel the incongruence between who you are presenting yourself as and who you actually are in your real life. And so they end up scrolling past, and it's not because your content is bad. It's really because it doesn't land true in their body. Another aspect I see most coaches and service providers, fall into is really not understanding buyer psychology from the standpoint of understanding that people don't buy from logic. They buy from felt safety. And felt safety is created when you show up in full congruence, when what you are saying matches who you are being behind the scenes, okay? And when there is no gap between the brand and the person, when you can actually feel that someone is not performing, okay, that they really are who they say they are. This only can happen when you build from your true identity and not the one that you are curating for an algorithm. I love to use my client Ty as an example because she wouldn't even show her face online. She was hiding behind her brand because she didn't believe that people would actually want her, all right? Once we rebuilt her identity foundation, once she actually understood who God created her to be and stopped performing as who she thought the market desired, honestly, everything began to shift for her. She started actually showing her face, wearing her curly hair, and this may actually seem unrelated, but for Ty, this was actually an extension of her true expression, okay? She started showing up boldly, and because of this, she ended up having a sold out pop-up shop online. And it's not because she learned better tactics. It's because she became congruent. 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9 says, "But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness and into his marvelous light." You were chosen. You were set apart. You were God's special possession, not because of what you have achieved. No, ma'am. It is because of who you are in him. And when your brand flows from identity, from the truth of who God says that you are, not who you have learned to pretend to be, everything will shift. Your messaging becomes clearer, not because you are trying to sound like someone else, but because You're really coming from a place of resonance. Your content becomes magnetic because people can actually feel your real authenticity. Your offers become undeniable because they're actually rooted in who you really are and not who you think you should be. So here is the shift. I want you to stop asking, what does the market want to see? What sells? I want you to start asking, who did God create me to be? And how does that truth flow through my work, my offers, my voice, and my positioning? Because your identity is not a branding exercise. It is the filter through which your entire sphere of influence flows. And when that filter is clear, sales conversations will become easier. Pricing becomes natural. Marketing becomes simply an expression of who you are and not a stage performance. Now, let's get into element 2. The second element is your capacity. And this is where I see a lot of Christian women who come into my world actually miss it, okay? They often think that capacity means how many clients you serve, like how many clients you can serve, how much content you can produce, or how hard you have to work before burning out. This is not capacity. This is simply hustle disguised as productivity, okay? Your capacity is actually your ability, the unique combination of skills, expertise, lived experience, and spiritual insight God has given you that others don't have. It's not about doing more. It's about owning what you're able to do that most people can't. And here is the trap that I often see women fall into. You end up downplaying your capacity because you've been taught that humility means making yourself small. We don't do littleness as a way of life. So you end up thinking things like, okay, you know what? I'm not an expert. I'm just sharing what worked for me. I don't want to come across as arrogant or prideful. Okay, sis. There are people way more qualified than me. Please hear me. While this may be true to some extent, okay, what you're really saying is from a heart posture that you think is humility. And it's not, okay? It's really fear dressed up as godliness. Because when you refuse to own your capacity, you're not being humble. You are hiding. And hiding doesn't serve the people God assigned to your work, okay? I want to give you an example. You'll find yourself undercharging, not because you don't know what premium pricing looks like, but because you don't actually believe that you have the capacity to deliver the result. You will price like you're a beginner, okay, even though you've been doing it for years. You offer more, way more than you should in your packages because really you're trying to prove your value instead of simply owning it. You will over deliver to compensate for the fact that you don't believe that what you bring is enough. And guess what? Your audience can feel that lack of confidence, which makes them question whether you are actually the right investment, okay? This is not a pricing problem. This is a matter of owning who you are, owning your capacity. And here is really what changed for me. I stopped trying to be like the best in the industry. I started owning the fact that I'm the best fit for specific people. I'm not for everyone, by no means, okay? But I am for the woman who needs theology and neuroscience and brand building all integrated. That's the woman that I am for. And once I really started owning that capacity, once I stopped really trying to apologize for what I bring to the table, what's unique to me, my pricing shifted, my messaging sharpened, and my clients actually started showing up ready to commit to work with me. Romans 12 verses 3-6 in the Passion Translation's paraphrase says this, okay? Be honest in your evaluation of yourselves, measuring yourself by the faith God has given us. In His grace, God has given us different gifts for doing certain things well. Be honest in your evaluation. Not falsely humble, not self deprecating, okay? Honest. God gave you a different gift, not the same gift of someone else, different, a different expression of that gift. And your job is not to minimize your gift in order to make someone else comfortable or even to be liked. Your job is to steward it well. So here is the shift. I want you to stop asking, am I qualified enough to charge this? I want you to start asking, what has God uniquely equipped me to do? And who needs what I carry right now? And what is the value of that transformation? Because your capacity isn't about being the best in your industry. Nope. It's about being the best fit for the people God has assigned to your work. And when you own that, when you stop hiding behind false humility, your pricing will become more clear. Your messaging becomes more confident, and your sales conversations naturally become a yes, because you're not trying to convince anyone of anything. You're simply stating what you are capable of delivering. Now for element 3. The third element is your power. And this is not about influence, authority, or follower count per se. I'm really talking about your genius, okay? This is your zone of excellence. The thing that only you bring, that no framework, no blueprint, no program can truly replicate. And here is what I used to believe. I used to believe that if I just followed a proven method that I would succeed. And please hear me, methods do matter. The frameworks do work. Proven strategies have value. However, if you are just copying someone else's method without understanding the why behind it, you're not standing out. You're just blending in like every other coach who bought that same program. Your power is the intersection of 4 things. Your story, so what you've lived through that has shaped how you see the world, that is the body of your work. Your expertise, so what you have learned through study, experience, and practice. Your perspective, so how you uniquely interpret and synthesize the information. And your design, how God wired you to communicate, lead, and create. When these 4 things come together, you create something truly no one else can actually replicate, okay? And this is what I call your one of one factor. Not a Canva template, not your color palette, not a clever, method name or program name, but the way that you actually show up in your work that literally cannot be duplicated. And I definitely want to make this practical. So let's say we have 2 coaches who can teach on the same topic. Let's say it's brand building for Christian entrepreneurs. Same niche, same problem, same outcome, right? Okay. But one of them brings this, okay? One of them has a background in theology. So she teaches brand through the lens of God-given identity, a lived experience of corporate burnout. So she builds rest and sustainability into every framework. And she has a design that is direct and confrontational. So her teaching style definitely cuts through the noise. Then we have the other coach who came from a creative arts background. So she teaches through aesthetic and cultural resonance, right? Let's say she built her business while homeschooling, so she emphasizes efficiency and sacred rhythms. And then let's say her design is that she's poetic and contemplative, so her teaching style feels devotional in nature. It's the same topic, but it's completely different power. And the right clients will choose based on who power actually resonates with them and not who has the better method. And this is why copying does not work. You can copy the structure, but you cannot copy the power. And when I stopped trying to build a business that looked like everyone else's, and started building from my power, my unique interest, and the intersection of theology, neuroscience, artistry, and embodied experience, everything changed. I really stopped competing, period. Okay, like I stopped worrying about what Coach Sally from 3 swipes ago was doing. Okay, I stopped second guessing who I was and the message that I'm actually meant to carry, right? And it's because I just decided I didn't need to stand out for the sake of just standing out, right? I just decided to be myself, all right? Ephesians 2 and 10 in the Passion Translation says, "We have become his poetry, a recreated people that will fulfill the destiny that he has given each of us, for we are joined to Jesus, the Anointed One." You are God's poetry, not a rough draft, not a copy, not a 2.0 version of someone else's work. You are his original masterpiece, and your business should reflect that originality. Because if your brand sounds like everyone else's, looks like everyone else's, feels like everyone else's, then guess what? You're not expressing your power. You are actually suppressing it. And suppressed power does not sell. So here is the question: what can you bring to your work that no one else can? Not because you're trying to be different for the sake of being different, but because you are fully being yourself. When you answer that, you will stop competing and comparing. You will stop worrying about what other coaches are doing in your niche. You will stop actually second guessing the value of your work and your messaging because you're not trying to stand out, because you already do. Now, let's talk about element 4. The fourth element is your brand world. This is one of my favorites. And this is where I see most coaches and consultants completely miss the assignment. Okay, so here is the lie that most of us believe, that like if we just have a cohesive brand aesthetic, the trending fonts and colors and templates, that will stand out. And so we end up spending weeks picking the perfect color palette. You might even hire a designer, creating a Pinterest worthy mood board, right? Templating everything in Canva. And it all looks fine for a season, professional for a moment, put together, but it doesn't feel like anything. Because a brand world isn't just about aesthetics, it's about a culture. It's the invisible architecture that actually make people say, you know what, I don't want to just hire her. I want to be in her world. I want to show you what this actually looks like. So let's say you're scrolling Instagram. You see 2 coaches with the same niche, same type of offer, similar pricing. We have Coach A. She has a beautiful feed, consistent posting, clear messaging, professional graphics. Great. But when you read her content, it feels generic. Like she's following a formula. Like you could swap her name with 10 other people, okay? And actually nothing about it would change. And then we have Coach B, right? She has a distinct voice, recurring language and metaphors that actually create a shared vocabulary with her audience. She shares stories that reveals her values and not just her strategies. She has a clear point of view, meaning she stands for something, okay? And some people love it, other people don't resonate with it, and she's okay with that, okay? When you read Coach B's content, you feel something. You either think to yourself, this is exactly what I've been trying to say or think, right? Or this is not for me. But you don't scroll past neutrally. That is a brand world. It's not about an aesthetic. It is about the experience people have when they step into your work. Here's what I discovered, okay? when I really started to shift into building a brand world, okay, when I stopped trying to be like everyone else, okay, I really started focusing on my Metron level clients. They just naturally found me, not because I got louder, but because they could finally hear me. Okay. A lot of women who enter my world are akin to me and my client Serena. Okay. And that initially they come to me thinking that they only need content strategy. Okay. But when we got on our first call, we realized, child, forget the strategy, okay? And the truth is that we actually never even touched content while we worked together, okay? We actually worked on who she actually was, okay? Not who she was performing to be and what she uniquely brought, okay? So really delving into her capacity and her power, okay? Once her foundation was set, everything shifted. She started showing up within her community, not second guessing herself. She stopped apologizing for her work and her genius. She ended up raising her prices. Clients ended up saying yes to her without hesitation. She even created a new revenue stream that her clients are actually loving, okay? Not because strategy changed. It was because she changed. Her brand became an expression of that and not a costume that she was wearing. And this is an aspect of what happens when you start to lean into identity and building and brand world building, okay? And the thing is that you end up no longer asking, okay, what should my brand look like? You actually start asking, what world does my work create? Okay? What am I inviting people into? What do people want to feel when they experience my work? Okay? And not just what it looks like. What language, stories, and values and experiencing am I weaving together that make my brand unmistakably me? Because true one-of-one positioning doesn't come from a font, a color, or a clever name. It comes from untamed wholeness, regulated power, translated into a clear brand vision, okay? Something people want to experience and step inside of, a brand that actually becomes a movement that is felt. Romans 12:6, kind of like the B clause says, in his grace, God has given us different gifts for doing certain things well. Again, different gifts, not the same, but different. And when you build from your identity, not the one that you are performing, your capacity, not false humility, your power, not a borrowed framework, your brand world, not a templated aesthetic, you don't just stand out. You actually become unforgettable, all right? And so I want to bring this all full circle. You came here wondering why you're still invisible despite all of your effort. And here is what I showed you today. Standing out isn't about tactics. Nope. It's actually about building from the right foundation. It's about claiming your signature, your identity, your capacity, and your power and your brand world. And when you do that, you don't just stand out. You actually become a category of one brand leader. Dream clients will in fact seek you out. Your income will in fact reflect the depth of what you actually carry, and you stop blending in. And this is the same framework that my clients use inside the Wild Wealth Mastermind to go from invisible to undeniable authority. So if you're thinking, okay, you know what, I need deeper support on this, I want you to scan the QR, okay, or click the link in the description to learn how we can work together. And also, if you're in a place and you're thinking, okay, Eb, listen, all right. I know who I am. I know what makes me different, but my message doesn't seem to land. What gives? That's what we're going to dive into in this video, because you can have a strong signature and still struggle to communicate it in a way that actually connects and encourages your right people to commit to your offer. So in the next video, I'm breaking down exactly why your messaging isn't landing and how to fix it. Make sure that you are subscribed so you don't miss it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.